Dr. Rand Paul is the junior United States Senator for Kentucky. Elected in 2010, he has proven to be an outspoken champion for constitutional liberties and fiscal responsibility and a warrior against government outreach. In the Senate, Senator Paul serves on the Foreign Relations, Health, Education, Labor and Pensions, Homeland Security, and Government Affairs and Small Business Committees. Senator Paul was a practicing ophthalmologist in Bowling Green, Kentucky for 17 years. Today, even as U.S. Senator, he continues to provide pro bono eye surgery to Kentuckians who are in need of care. Senator Paul has been a vocal advocate for term limits, a balanced budget amendment, a Read the Bills Act, and an audit of the Federal Reserve. He has gained prominence in his independent positions on many political issues. Time magazine recently named him the most interesting man in politics. Senator Paul has been married for 24 years to Kelly Ashby of Russellville, Kentucky, and they have 3 sons. One of his sons, who I've enjoyed visiting with, Duncan, who is a freshman here at UK, is with them here today. Duncan, thank you for passing up all those tough classes to be here with us. I have 2 kids at UK. I know that feeling. Please join me in welcoming U.S. Senator Rand Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We all have different adversities that we have to come over, things in our resume that really have tried to hold us back and that we have to overcome. For me, one of the biggest things in Kentucky to overcome was having graduated from Duke University. I'm trying to make amends, though. I have 2 boys at UK now, and I'm doing the best I can to make sure people know where my loyalties are. But when I came to UK the first time, when I was running in 2009, I gave a speech, and the title from the UK newspaper was one of my favorite titles. It said that a blue devil came to wildcat country, but he came in peace. I was at Duke the second time back in the 90s when there was a famous game, with Christian Laettner in Kentucky. And I think that's where a lot of the animosity stems from. I thought when I got to Bowling Green, I'd put my diploma up and people would think, oh, he went to Duke. Maybe he's a good physician. We'll go to see him. I had to take it down. I had to take my diploma down. But in 92, we were in Durham. We were living there. My wife and I were married. We didn't have any kids, and we had a bunch of friends over, and we were watching the UK game. And UK makes that point. He makes that 3-point shot off the glass. UK's ahead by a point, 1.4 seconds to go. And our phone starts ringing. And my wife, this is in the days when you didn't have caller ID and people actually answered their phone. So with 1.4 seconds to go, she got up and answered the phone. And about that time, Laettner's shot goes through for Duke to win. And everybody's screaming. Our house was all for Duke at the time. Everybody was screaming, and whoever's on the other end of the phone hung up. About 10 years later, we discovered it was one of her brothers, who were all UK fans, calling to razz us and, over the UK victory that didn't happen, but they didn't admit for 10 years which one of them it was. Some have said, well, what's going to happen? We've had a big change of leadership in Washington. What are the good things that are going to happen now in Washington? I hope some good things are going to happen, but I can tell you that, frankly, I'm a little disappointed with the president's first responses to us trying to do anything. It was a big message. I mean, we won a big election. We put a Republican governor in Maryland, for goodness sakes. Massachusetts, Illinois, 3 blue states elected Republican governors. Think that means that the public wants something a little bit different. The federal takeover on health care upset a lot of people. Not because we didn't have problems with health care, but people thought, you know what? Is it a very American thing to take away the choice of a patient to choose what kind of insurance they have or which doctor they go to see? That was a big part of the election. So we may understand that the president's not going to maybe repeal his signature piece of legislation, but the question is he even willing to modify it at all? One very small tweak to it, which doesn't even go at the heart of Obamacare, but would save 2.5 million jobs, is to change the requirement from that you have to have insurance not at 30 hours for an employee, but at 40 hours. This is a small tweak, but CBO says it would save 2.5 million jobs. He said he's going to veto it. If he's going to veto that, it means that really he's not open to anything on this. And my prediction is nothing will happen to this, but there are a lot of things that are coming forward that people are going to have to realize are going to be problems. One, the pool is shrinking of those who pay for their insurance, and their premiums are going to rise. Two, we're going to find out that many people who have very good insurance are going to pay a tax for having very good insurance. In some ways, all of us are going to pay the tax. I was in a community recently, and the county government officials, all of the government officials in the county, their insurance is regarded as being now a Cadillac plan, and they will pay a tax, which means you will pay a tax, or there'll be less money for roads, bridges, lights, police, fire, all the things your local government does. But there's going to be a special tax on those who do have good insurance. The other thing is the only thing that really is illegal or banned now is inexpensive insurance. Now, sure, some people will be subsidized, but realize that some people who are subsidized in getting free insurance now have a card and will be encouraged to go and seek treatment, but their deductible is $6,000. So do you think if you're getting free and or mostly subsidized insurance, you're going to be paying on your $6,000 deductible? It's essentially going to be non-payers who are now been emboldened by having an insurance card. There are a lot of problems we still face. I think there will be increased access. Our governor here in Kentucky loves the expansion of Medicaid and says it's a $15 billion infusion for Kentucky. Where does he think the money's coming from? Does he think it grows on trees? How are we getting the money to pay for Medicaid? I have as much sympathy as any for those who don't have insurance. I treat people all the time. I would treat over 100 patients every year that didn't have insurance. I traveled to Guatemala last year to help people. I have as much sympathy as anybody else, and yet, if you have misplaced sympathy and say, oh, well, everybody should be on Medicaid, how are we going to pay for it? You know, it's free. It's coming from the federal government. Raise your hand if you don't pay federal taxes. And it's even worse than that. It'd be one thing if we were going to pay for the expansion of Medicaid out of our taxes. You're not paying for it out of taxes. You're borrowing the money from China to pay for Medicaid. You're borrowing the money from China to pay for everything. We are short of money. We owe China a couple $1 trillion now. It's an unstable and untenable situation, and it will come to an end, either gradually through the destruction of the currency, which happens gradually over time, or abruptly through a panic when people discover someday maybe the emperor has no clothes, that something's really wrong and that this is a great illusion. Some think there's an illusion now that the rise in the stock market is an illusion. Some say, well, the rich are getting richer through the stock market, that the income inequality is coming on. Well, there's some truth to that. But if you want to look where income inequalities are worse, look in cities run by Democrats, states run by Democrats, and countries run by Democrats. Black unemployment is twice white unemployment. Average household income for black families has gone down dramatically. I don't think that the president doesn't care. I don't question his motives, but we should look at the objective facts. Are things better or worse? Is income inequality better or worse under this president versus the previous president? Is unemployment better or worse? Are more people getting jobs, or are more people becoming permanently disabled? There are a lot of problems we still face as a country. Are there anything that we can do together? I think there are two things that I'm in the middle of that I think could possibly occur even under this president. Number one, we're short of money for roads and bridges. The president says he's for infrastructure. There's a relative amount of bipartisan support for infrastructure. The highway fund, though, is $15 billion short every year. Kentucky gets about $400 million. That's not enough to build any new projects. That's just keeping up with what we have. So you've got a bridge in northern Kentucky that needs replaced. You got bridges in Louisville that need to be replaced. Big projects aren't funded. So I have a proposal. My proposal is the $2 trillion of American profit that's overseas, let's encourage it to come home by reducing the tax rate. We did this in 2005. We lowered the tax rate from 35% to 5%. $300 billion came home. It's an enormous stimulus for the economy, but also about $30 billion of it became tax revenue. It's twice as much money overseas. What I'm proposing is we do it again. I have an amendment with Barbara Boxer, so you have a Republican and a Democrat coming together on this. We'll do it for 5 years at a lower rate, and then instead of putting the money into the general fund, we put it specifically into the highway fund. I think this has a chance of passing. The president actually voted for this in 2005 when he was a senator. It's unsure whether he's still for this. I think his support has softened, but if this were attached to the highway bill, the question is the president willing to sign a highway bill that actually has a new stream of money that would help to pay for highways? I think this is one thing we could do. There's very few things we can agree on. In order to pass anything, we have to have 6 Democrats vote with all the Republicans in the Senate, and then it has to be signed by the president. There's very few areas of agreement, but this might be one that we might actually get something done. Another is criminal justice reform, and I think there is a need for criminal justice reform and the possibility of it. Lincoln wrote that, "I have always found mercy bears richer fruit than strict justice." And I think there's some truth to that. We don't have to say that things are okay that people do, that we all think lead to problems, drug use, drug sale, things like that. But do we think there can be an element of mercy in the law that allows people to get a second chance? I frankly think there is room for that, and we need to do more. If we are, like I am, a Republican and think that I don't want people permanently on welfare, well, guess what? You have to have a job if you have a felony conviction on your record. So what I propose for nonviolent felonies, let's make some of them misdemeanors. Let's expunge some records after people have behaved for a while. Let's let people get back the right to vote after a while. I think it would be something that we could do that would help, particularly with people who feel like the American dream is bypassing them and that they're not part of an America that they can feel, see, and grasp an opportunity the way most of us do. So I think there is some possibility for criminal justice reform. A couple of them that I've proposed: civil asset forfeiture. Currently, the government can take your stuff without convicting you. I'm okay if they convict you taking your stuff if you're doing something wrong, maybe putting it to good use. But if you haven't been charged or convicted, I think that puts justice on its head. That if you're guilty until you prove that you're innocent, that the government takes your money and then you have to prove that you're innocent. Who's affected by this? The Washington Post did a series on this, and they found of 400 cases they looked at, predominantly these people were poor, often black, often Hispanic, often people just didn't have resources. If the government takes $1,500 from you and says, prove that it's yours, anybody, an attorney here, are going to volunteer to do that for less than the $1,500. You know, you often your costs are eaten up by the legal representation to prove that the money is yours. This is going on time and time again. It's why I've come out in opposition to Loretta Lynch for the Attorney General. She's famous in Manhattan for confiscating $110 million. 3 brothers had a company that was a cigarette and candy company that no one has said that there's any proof or even an insinuation of anything illegal other than that they deposit a lot of cash. But that's their business model. They deposit a lot of cash. She took $500,000 from them for 3 years. They finally got it back, but after fighting, what do you think they spent? $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in legal fees to get their own money back. But take that kind of situation, which happened to rich, affluent people, and realize that most of the time this is happening to poor people. Look at grandmother who has a house and 15-year-old grandson selling marijuana out of the house. Do you think it does any good for the structure of the family to take grandma's house? This is happening even without a conviction. They're taking grandma's house. The stabilizing force in this family is grandma's house, and they're taking it. We don't see all this stuff. It's not happening to us. But it's not that your kids are perfect either. The thing is if you look at surveys of drug use, white kids are doing it the same as black kids and brown kids. But the people getting caught are poor, who live in neighborhoods where the police go. And we've had a lot of discussion over some police incidents in the last couple of months, and people are like, well, is it racism? I don't think it is racism. Of course, there's probably still people out there who are, but often this is in communities where the police officers are black. The police chief may be black. So it isn't really an overt racism. It's a racial outcome, though, nonetheless, and it's unfair. I'll give you one more example. Kiefer Browder, 16 years old, from the Bronx. He's arrested and accused of an assault by somebody. The person accusing him wasn't here in the country legally. The details were kind of sketchy. Frankly, I don't know whether he was guilty or not, but he's 16. He was held in Rikers for 3 years without trial. He had a $30,000 bail. Anybody in this room would have gotten your kid out, and you wouldn't have had it. He tried to commit suicide 5 times. Think about that. Think if it were your kid, how you'd feel. And think about how if you live in the Bronx and you're an African American in the Bronx, do you think justice is fair? I've seen them in D.C., people marching down the streets. People are unhappy. And the thing is, the specific instances, there is right and wrong on both sides. I don't think police are bad people. I think most police are good people. I'm proud of that. I've got police and sheriff's office here today that help to deter people from attacking me. But the thing is, we have to realize how people see this and how they perceive this, and realize that there is an injustice going on in our country. And if we don't fix it, if we don't figure out how we're going to make things better, that this unease is rising beneath the surface, and it's going to be worse. And all of us succeed in business by having stability, by having rule of law. I'd like to finish, though, with one, I think, more uplifting story. There was a woman by the name of Helen Johnson in Tarrant, Alabama, and just before Christmas, her daughters lived with her and her daughters' children. They hadn't eaten in 2 days, and she went to the store, and, you know, part of living in poverty is sometimes, I think, bad planning, but they had no money and no food. And she went to the store, and she had $1.25, and the eggs were $1.75. She was 50 cents short on the eggs, and so she stole the eggs. And she didn't get very far. Her luck was not with her, and she's caught as she's leaving the store. But the great story is there was a police officer who showed up, and his name was William Stacy, and he lectured her and told her stealing was wrong, but then he bought the eggs for her. And it was just such a heartwarming story of discretion, of there being mercy involved in justice. It doesn't mean I'm for stealing, doesn't mean I don't think you should go to jail if you steal, but having some degree or modicum of compassion for circumstances. And there was such an outpouring that truckloads of food poured in for this family. There's so many good stories like that, and the vast majority of police are good, but we got to fix the system. I don't blame the police, I blame the politicians. I want to be part of the solution. I think this is something that goes across party lines. I've got something with Cory Booker. I've actually got a bill with Harry Reid on criminal justice reform. So I think there are areas where we can work together if we get beyond some of the petty partisanship. I'm very proud and privileged to serve in the U.S. Senate for you, and I thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.